seem to be some of these elite warriors that would have been part of this sort of Germanic, in this Germanic sphere at some point. But I'm going to be pushing maybe the date, maybe past this Viking age, and kind of wondering about some of the older traditions that were out there, and then actually interweaving it with some of the other politics that are going on. I'm going to be all over the place here tonight. But I've got a big old slideshow that I'm going to throw up on the screen here now, so you should be able to see it too. I'm going to adjust the screen. Uh, there you go. Yeah, I need our true schizo to be able to keep up. Hail. We're only drinking Donks Mio, the unofficial sponsor of both our channels. All right, so yeah, today's video I've called it Man and Beast because, like I said, plenty of other channels have already done the whole history of werewolves. Fortress of Loo and Cambria Chronicles actually has a really cool werewolf video too. So I'm not going to be touching on just werewolves or just berserkers, but you'll kind of see where I'm going with a lot of this stuff. But yeah, just to kind of, I don't know if anyone's actually pointed this out. So yeah, the new Robert Eggers film Werewolf coming out. We got Aaron Taylor Johnson going to be playing, I guess, our titular werewolf character, right? But I don't know if anybody knew this. So the trailer dropped on like June, what was it, June 26th? June 26th or 29th? I'm already forgetting on the top of my head. But I know this was confirmed. Y'all can go check me on this. The day that it dropped was actually a full moon. And not only any full moon, but it was actually a strawberry full moon. Yeah, it was June 29th is when he dropped it. So obviously, he's, I don't know, you want to have any, I don't know if that's a little magical little touch there when he's dropping his werewolf film on, of course, a full moon, and not even just full moon, but one that's like blood red, right? Yeah, yeah. He released it on Christmas Eve, right? I think, and if we go back to, I've done some of this stuff before. I've looked into the etymology of the word Gothic itself, and even when the very first quote unquote Gothic novel comes out, and per this northern tradition in Europe, they like to tell ghost stories around that time of year, right? And so the very first subtitled novel ever called The Castle of Otranto, a Gothic tale, the first one to kind of use that moniker, was actually released on Christmas, either Eve or Day. I totally forget, but once again, it's definitely in line with that Gothic tradition, right? And I don't know if anyone knew this before, but I had asked, I've done some D&D, or not Dungeons and Dragons specifically, but I've done some Shadow Dark content. So this has been like my profile picture for some time. I worked with an artist, and yeah, we've made, Berserkers and Ulfhednars and Rune Masters as classes for Shadow Dark. And this has been my favorite picture for like the longest time. And, I definitely made sure to ask him to put some, the Ansu's rune here hanging off the spear for this whole thing, right? Because, he's got, and when we talk about, Berserkers and Ulfhednars, right? And I'm going to be showing some other images, and this is like the cool version of this, right? So whenever we think of Berserkers, right, they're always got this like the head of the cow kind of draped over the top, and it looks like real badass, right? Um, but and I'm just going to be like pushing back against that because there was an artifact that I found that actually Norse Magic Belief or Uzlaga actually talked about that kind of made me change a lot of my opinions on, not to change my opinions, but just made me ponder a lot of stuff. So let me just show you some scenes here from the new werewolf movie, because it's actually going to set up a lot of my arguments where I'm going to go from here later on. And so it's going to, let's say it's going to get rated R, but it's going to get suggestive a little bit. Maybe if you're younger than 18 or whatever, this might not be the video for you. So just to let you know where we're going with this. So opening bit of this trailer, this is just shots from the trailer, right? So nothing, I'm not spoiling anything here, but Aaron Taylor Johnson, as someone who's young and he's kind of hanging out with this creepy priest dude, is like, come here, child of God. And they go into this cave, right? And so right off the bat, it going to a cave. And so you're going to this, underworld place. You're going into this like maybe liminal place or something like that. And not to, once again, not to be lewd, but I'm going to be making the argument that, maybe there's a little bit of an orifice, connotation here of some sorts, because the rest of the trailer, you get this kid and there's all these like freaky horror, folk horror scenes of, this crazy ritual and people dance around and, stag, hell, things and people riding creepy broomstick stuff. And there's a shot really quick when this is the hood of a wolf pelt, right? And so this kid's like on all fours, and they're entering this wolf head from the bottom of the shot, right? And this person in this position is kind of in a compromised position, right? And I don't know if there's something suggestive, right, of this wolf pelt entering from the bottom of the frame, kind of going, dare I say, like into somebody in a sense, not just obviously the spirit of the wolf, blah 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 blah. But I just wonder if where this movie's going, and some of the last shots, so you see him kind of in pain or sort of in trauma, right? And then the very next thing before it kind of shows you like a time skip, you get this shot right after that. You see him screaming, and then you see him have this kind of 1,000 yard stare. And if you know anything about the 1,000 yard stare, right, from people in war or people that have been abused or people that have had significant trauma, this is what it kind of looks like, right? They've now completely dissociated, right, of some sort. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. That's a fair point to make. Um, so yeah, this is just some of the imagery that I was kind of wondering about this sort of stuff as we go along. And so once again, even in this movie though, right? They're kind of putting the snout of the pelt over it. When we think of something badass, right? When I show you my original picture here, yeah, we kind of have over the top. And now let me just show you some pictures from wolves and in this northern European tradition, right? So this is from the Sutton Hoo. They call it the purse lid, and it's actually a much more extravagant, larger piece. But right off the bat, since if you know anything about the Viking stuff, if you know anything about Roger Eggers' last movie, The Northman, Odin is like up and down in it, right? He's like Odin is a major theme in this, and Odin has definitely got a connotation and an association with wolves in general. Okay, and so even on here, yeah, even though this is found in England, people may not know this, but yeah, Odin did have a presence in Anglo-Saxon England, actually at some point. Mm, interesting. I didn't know that. Interesting. Um, oh yeah. Dang. Yeah, yeah. Wow, these are great points to make already right off the bat. So, yeah, I did not know that. Yeah, I totally did not know that their Antichrist as a one-eyed figure, dude. And not even just a one-eyed figure, because it could be oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, I've heard of that term actually. And because there's other like one-eyed figures in like Celtic, I want to say like the Irish, right? There's the Balor guy, I want to say that's I think that's his name. Um, hmm. And so, yeah, just kind of showing that people think that, yeah, this might be Odin and that he's known to have two wolves that are usually at his side, Gary and Frecky, right? So, and if we continue on, here's just like a higher resolution. I just think this thing is so cool. Just like the intricate metal work that they've kind of done and how they've inlaid the amber and the crystal and all this other sort of stuff. Man, it's just like so cool. Um, and now these are from the Torslunda plates. This is from Sweden, right? I think is what it was. And here's where we get some more scenes of, this. So this is the famous spear dancer that we were kind of talking about earlier. And here people think that, yeah, that this might be Enulf Hednar, right? This might be a guy with a, wolf pelt head, uh, sort of thing. He's kind of drawing his sword and, definitely lots of spears kind of going on. Maybe these guys kind of have like boars or something, or maybe there are other wolves. I forget what it is. Um, Same thing here. This guy might be flanked by two wolves as well. This is just, yeah, kind of showing that there's a heavy association with the warrior tradition and as well, yeah, with the wolves. And this specific one is definitely going to be a major inspiration for. Here's this, yeah, a little closer there. I think this is also supposed to be like the two ravens too, right on top of his head. So when people think it's like a horned helmet, it's actually like the two ravens that are actually meeting. another Odinic motif. Um, yes, right, yeah. Yeah, people have said, yeah, it's actually 2 birds instead of, horns or whatever, and, so here's just, like, a modern rendition, yeah, just showing Odin, obviously the spear and obviously the wolves, and even if we go back to the very, very top right, uh, in this trailer, you don't see Aaron Taylor Johnson with a spear at all, but boom, he's got his spear here, and that's obviously why I put it in there too, just because, I made this we did this thing, like, 3 years ago now or whatever, but let me just scroll down, right? Yeah, and and I think that we'll be talking a lot about not just wolves, but dogs, right? Because so much of the human history is tied in with the dog. I feel like that we don't even humans are just as human. We are humans just because of the dogs themselves too, right? This sort of association or uh, symbiotic relationship with a certain type of wolf, right? And don't they say that a lot of dogs actually descend from the European gray wolf or some kind of particular breed of wolf that's actually up there too. So. Hmm. My buddy Chance, my usual co-host, would definitely be able to attest to it because he's got like I'm not sure if it's half wolf, maybe it's like a third or a quarter or something, but yeah, he's literally got a half wolf dog. His name is Cola, and he's like a giant squirrel. He's Hmm, really? That's cool. Okay. The Irish definitely have some cool names as well. My brother-in-law, his name is Connor, and it means like Lord of the Hounds. And even Cuckoo Lane, I think his name has also got to do with hounds and dogs. Yeah, yeah, they're kind of war or they're forensic state or something. Mm. And I think that's a really that's going to be a big theme I think for later tonight. So yeah, if you notice anything along this conversation, I would definitely keep harkening back to that sort of analysis here. And so yeah, so Odin definitely the wolf god, or definitely associated with wolves, but he's also destined, of course, to be destroyed by a wolf as well, right? So maybe part of that same thing, right? Like if we can control the dogs, we can harness the wolves. I heard that shamanic practices that even in like the Sami or the North, the reason why they would ravens are such a big deal is because when you see ravens circling around, you can kind of tell when they're following certain prey, so you can actually kind of follow and successfully complete a hunt or something. But regardless, Odin at Ragnarok is supposed to be devoured by Fenrir, right? He's supposed to be devoured by a wolf. So a little bit of the medicine that like a pharmacon, right? It can heal you, but it can also poison you, like the wolf. It can help you, but it can also destroy you. So I'm very interested in this sort of balancing of this sort of thing, right? Yeah, sometimes like you gotta I've had to look, if I don't turn my camera on and microphone on Discord before I turn on like my streaming stuff like won't pick it up properly or whatever. So I have to like do everything in Discord and then like hop over to the stream or whatever. Um, but just to show you, so here's this that helmet right of the spear dancer, and obviously we got our Ulfhead and our berserker, our wolf berserker here in the Torslunda plate. And so here is a shot from the Northmen, right? So yeah, we got this. This is the scene where they do the spear dance, and we got the exact same guy here, right? He's got his two spears, and he's got you can kind of barely tell that it's like the two birds that are meeting. That's why they have these little beaks here, essentially. And here's the badass, wolf cow, right? This looks cool, right? We got the wolf draped over the head. Yeah, it looks like someone wearing a hoodie. I don't know, just it looks cool here, right? And Amleth in this movie, he renames himself Bjorn Ulfr, right? When he's trying to go incognito. So yeah, literally bear wolf, and bears are also going to be a big conversation or topic in today as well. Um, and also just the Northmen. People didn't know this, that it's very much like Hamlet set in Viking period, and I totally even missed this, but yeah, even Amleth is, people will say that this word is Amlothr in the original in Saxo Grammaticus, but it's even got, so it's ODR or OTHR technically, but that's it. Exactly. But even Amlet's name, Amma, which means like to vex or frenzy, and then Oder, literally for the first part of Odin's name, is actually embedded in his name as well. So Amlother is how you would actually spell it, and not just Amleth. This is a more anglicized version of it, but Amlother, ODR, THR, O Thornar, is the first part of Odin's name, right? Which just means, also frenzy or madness, right? And what he does is he plays, in this movie, he's doing the Greek where we get the word irony from, ironia, which is a character that pretends to be dumb in order to essentially outmaneuver other people, right? That's what he does the whole time. He kind of plays dumb. He kind of plays like a mute, or he kind of plays like a big, oaf, because he's trying to enact his revenge. And so I've got some of just other screenshots from other Norse tradition stuff, right? We've got the Volsunga sagas. We've got two characters, and Sigmund and his cousin Sinfioti. They find wolf skins when they're outlaws at some point, and they put them on, and they become cursed essentially with lycanthropy, right? They turn into wolves, and that um, they kind of get stuck in it for a little bit, is I believe how it goes. And yeah, just once again hitting this constant motif of, yeah, this imbibing some of this wolf energy, right? We've got this clan called the Wolfings or Eeflings. They're actually part of the Beowulf saga as well. Some people think, yeah, that even the Ace Anglian Wolfings is related to all this stuff as well. So yeah, people definitely calling themselves wolf people, wolf that, and obviously wearing wolf skins left and right. And as I kind of brought it up before, we've got the Mannerbund, which is going to go real far back. So yeah, if we're talking, this was all Viking Age period, and maybe later Iron Age, but here we're proto, just pre medieval. But here we're going to get supposedly theoretical, or at least this idea of this tradition in the Proto-Indo-European sense of this rite of passage and men, potentially leaving the clans and doing this sort of marauding outlaw sort of thing. And yeah, well, they kind of say it here that this idea of liminality between vulnerability and death on one side and youth and adulthood on the other side, right? So they kind of become wolves out, out in the wilderness, and as far as like them kind of pillaging or kind of letting it go, right? They're kind of letting all that exhaustive energy out, maybe perhaps, right? As they're learning to acclimate to society, right? When you're like a young man and you're from 18 to 25, 27, 28, this is like the prime of your sort of libido and sort of ideology is always associated with donning the wolf skin and partaking like a wolf, and also, but you're also in a pack, right? Wolves are not solitary creatures; there are social creatures, and so I think that's all really fascinating as far as tracing these ideas that have, once again, are very, 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 very old potentially, and I'm hopefully going to be proving it even further with all these other sorts of cases I've sort of found. But once again, we're talking about this is the cool version, right? Yeah, men are bun, wearing all this sort of stuff and wearing the wolf pelt over the head. Like, this is badass, right? Now, Uzlaga, North Magic and Beliefs, he shared this other video, and it's called the Hedabe mask. And they found this mask that was like stuffed inside like the repair of a ship or something. And they were like, yo, is this actually what some of these masks might have looked like at some point? And here's like an AI sort of recreation imposed over it. And when I saw this thing, what if this is supposed to be like a sheep, I think is what it is, but with what if it was actually the full covering of the face is way different than just wearing the cowl or the hood over the top of the head, right? And I was just way more creeped out by this version of it than this version. This is badass. This is cool, right? Yeah, hoorah. But if it's covering your whole face, it's like there's an extra level of creepiness to it. There's an extra pushing of the liminal barrier into this sort of thing, right? Um, yeah, yeah. Who knows? Instead of just I'm just so used to only covering the top of the head, and just to kind of completely cover the face is just an extra layer of like ooh spookiness. Mm, yeah. Yep. And Batman is the gothic hero in Gotham or Gotham technically. But I have a whole video saying that Batman is just is Odin. I like this one dude on Twitter or on TikTok that I made this video, and he's like, "Yeah, Batman's like that aristocrat who's kind of unquestionably manly, and that sort of stuff. But he can also get a little foppy if he needs to complete, some objective or something, right? I don't know, just yeah, Odin being able to learn the Scyther for instance, right? And Loki being like, "Hey, didn't you dress up like a girl to learn that stuff?" Yeah, I just find that very very potent. Modern, yeah, yep, yep, yeah, it's amazing. Right. Yeah, exactly. I totally know what you mean. Yeah, exactly, and Odin even retorts. Yep, and Odin's even replied to him, Loki's like, "Oh, did you dress up like a girl and do all the girl stuff to learn the girl magic?" And Odin's like, "Didn't you get run through like a girl, like a whore or something?" He kinda says something like that. Uh, yep, and so when I saw this mask, when I was, once again, this is even just a sheep one, this is not even a wolf one, so maybe the wolf ones actually did look more badass or whatever, right? But when I saw this and I saw this sort of stuff, I was like, wait a second, this just reminds me a lot more of modern stuff, right? So it definitely made me think of like this is more of like a furry looking mask, honestly, if I had to kind of put a place to it, right? And then I definitely thought of this event that happened earlier this year. Okay, so in case people didn't hear, there was this event that happened at Mar-a-Lago that I guess the Trump administration kind of half put on, and they were celebrating canines and like law enforcement or something, right? But the way that they thought they would do this is like host it at Mar-a-Lago and have these people in 18th century garb and wearing dog masks the whole time. And so yeah, you see these clips of these people dancing around and greeting people and being a part of this whole celebration. And instantly the public was like, "Hey, this looks like two things." It's actually two Stanley Kubrick things, right? They're like, "Hey, this looks like it looks like that scene from The Shining." Right, where it's in the book, it's a dog man in the book, The Shining by Stephen King, but in the film, they definitely more have changed it to a bear. Although I've seen it tested that people have also thought maybe it was a walrus or something, which I could definitely go into a little later too. But yeah, there were people were like, yeah, this remind rich creepy people, doing this sort of out of touch uh, event or whatever, right, with the public. and reminding me of not only this, but also kind of, the mask stuff from Eyes Wide Shut, right? So it's almost like a weird combination between the two aesthetics here. And not to get too off derailed here, I really like this color palette that someone found. And I was definitely, someone pointed out the other day to me, was like, oh, yeah, see, it's all the Tyrion purple stuff. And people can go check my Dionysus and Milk, Honey, and Purple stream that I kind of talk about all the Tyrion purple stuff. But even this color palettes down here, this is the famous scene at the end of Eyes Wide Shut, or near the end anyway. But here's a thing of the Tyrion purple colors, but even this sort of palette of these like tans even remind me of the colors of the mollusks themselves, actually. So I feel like it's the whole aesthetic is right here, which I thought was really interesting. But once again, people are just associating, like, they see rich people, out of touch, aristocrats putting on this event, and it's obviously people are like, oh, this is dystopian or yada yada, right? And it looks like Eyes Wide Shut. It looks like Eyes Wide Shut. But I was like, this reminds me of The Shining too, right? Just because of this particular mask.
Also, I know some poor people that will go out of their way to do that, right? Like that, like there's a way that whatever that is, there's a cheap version of it that looks exactly as good, because that doesn't register to me as inherently rich people. Because if you find a beautiful hotel, you can work out your whole thing, or like some sort of civic center thing, because I've been to a bazillion comic and anime cons, right? Where, like at the very least it's cosplay, right? Which, I watched the rise of furry culture from seeing that stuff popping up at anime cons, right? And it was just something that I just stayed away from. I was just like, what are they doing? It's I kind of hated watching like all of pop culture get infantilized. And then I really understood the infantilization when I saw how people came to act at the lowest states of the pandemic, right? Like adults and young adults, like old people and young adults, all these other kinds of people, all of them acting like whatever. It's just like, you guys are all acting like you're grounded, like you did something wrong. Right?
So true. And
you're
acting
like God is very cross with you right now.
And bringing it back to that neotenizing effect, right? Turning, we're all children of the state now, right? But in the scene, for people don't know the context, this movie comes out in 1980. So I think it's very interesting that we're already getting this sort of register all the way back here. And people point out to other cartoons, like a Japanese cartoon that's part of this furry thing, or even people point out to the Disney Robin Hood film has also been sort of an inspiration for some of this too. But in case people don't know, Danny, one of the hidden sort of suggested themes or this part of the scene is that this bear motif is kind of propping up a lot in this film up until this point. And this is like during the climax of the film when all this crazy crap is going down.
Yeah.
And Wendy, the mom, like looks down the hall and you just kind of see this happening real quick. And so people have been like, what is this? And but Danny, the little boy in the film, is always kind of juxtaposed with bears all the time. Where he's carrying a bear. When he first has his fainting episode at the beginning of the movie, he's like lying his head down on this like bear rug thing. Even the elevators, the famous elevator scenes with the blood, it's like the two little dials at the top, and the mouth kind of looks like, bear, at least fairly similar with especially the brown rug pattern floor.
And granted, like that's a security blanket thing, right? When I was Danny's age, my parents got me a stuffed Clifford the Big Red Dog. And that was cool. That was like the coolest thing to me. And I slept with it like every boy Danny's fucking age. Right. And in hindsight, it's a big red dog, and now I'm not just an Odinist, but I'm really a Tyrist more than an Odinist. I just say Odinist because everybody knows the word Odinist, and that's more over encompassing. But but before, like, the first god I really leaned into was Tyr because of my childhood upbringing and how much I saw what was there, and what I now needed to process from what was there in my childhood, right? Because I was a bad kid, man. I was definitely Fenris off the chain. I'm a little berserker. I'm throwing temper tantrums. I bit my teacher once. Teachers had to sit on me to calm me down. They put me on lithium and things like that. That's
God.
That's what I came out of. Unconsciously protesting Robert Maxwell's curriculum.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly, dude. Good, fair point. Yeah, Pergamon Press, man.
That's what it fucking was. Okay.
Yeah, dude. It totally was, man. And so you're bringing an excellent point. Yeah, just about reacting against this world that is unnatural in a sense too, and so we revert to things that obviously comfort us. And yeah, there's this sort of the motif, and this scene is actually in the book Stephen King, but you get more exposition about who these characters are actually, right? And so this person actually has this character fleshed out, but when in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, it's only here for like a split second. So in the book, once again, it's a dog, but in the film, it's definitely been changed to a bear. So don't forget, I'm sort of conflating and adding a lot of this stuff about this relation between wolves and bears throughout this whole thing, right? And even this actor doing right now, I'm definitely going to even bring up this fellatio bit and like what even more context here in a second. But I have the picture down later when I actually get to that point. So all the Tyrion purple stuff. So yeah, here's like some of the furry stuff. And once again, in this scene, this comes out in 1980, right? And so this is obviously it's definitely a sexual act. Yeah. And I just kind of have once again, I didn't really source down any of these quotes here, but just to kind of show that there's definitely a sexual angle with the whole furry community, at least in some sense, right? Some people are like, it's not just this or that, but they even have like some statistics here that according to 4 different surveys that I didn't really follow through and read, but conducted from this time to this time, 14 to 15% are report homosexuality, 37 to 52% bisexuality, 28 to 39% heterosexuality, and 3 to 8% other forms, right? So and other 76% were in relationship with another member of the furry fandom. And so the whole point is that and once again, I'm not like even judging anybody about this sense too, because people I think are reacting to something going on with their consciousness or the psyche that's a real thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would just have to call it by its like the most the term that it is would be called like a sexual deviancy. Not that it's like, oh, bit bad and nacky, I'm just judging you. It's like, no, but you're deviating from a sort of like naturalistic quote unquote right, or at least the most vanilla way possible of having a sexual intercourse, right?
A lot of parents were happy with the imprinting of all manner of things, right? It's just excuse me, it's just as a man who had a lot of entertainment interests, like a lot of more nerdy type people, so like I definitely was into things I thought were really good on Cartoon Network, especially if I saw that and I said, well, I like this and I'm glad that there's kids that like this, right? And so back in the day, Cartoon Network had all this amazing shows, whether it was Dexter's Lab and all that stuff. There was a whole era by a handful of animators that were part of like this flagship. But then a new generation came in shortly after Codename Kid Next Door. And that's when the message came right in, and all sorts of shows with all sorts of really creepy things or cringy things or things where it's like, oh my God. Right. And so, like Steven Universe, like the fact that my name's Steven, and at the time I'm still a fat guy. I'm a metalhead. I'm not like him, but he's like this softy fat guy. And then he's got all these amazing action women around him that are special crystal entities. And they're all lesbians that conjoin themselves as crystals. So it's the new age witchyism is in there and all that stuff. And I'm just like, all right, this is cool education on like crystal energies through personality stuff and all them, there's some interesting metaphysics going on in here, cool lore, but this show just wants to be outright only for this. And then too many shows were like that. The show Uncle Grandpa, he had a waist pouch that was a slice of pizza for the buckle of the waist pouch, a big slice of pizza that was hanging right over his crotch, and he would pull stuff out of the pizza pouch. And I'm already aware way before the, way before the Clinton files, the Epstein files about pizza code word, because I've been studying conspiracies for that goddamn fucking long. And I'm like, whoa, that animation ain't fucking right. That show is all wrong. Right. So
no, Nickelodeon's also loaded with all that stuff too. These are the mind
control shows that have engineered this, combined with how society has dehormonalized everybody.
Right.
It's
or hyper hormonalized too, in the complete opposite too.
Hyper hormonalized in imbalance, and then overstimulated while undersatisfied. Right, because of the incel effect. Right. It's like,
so true.
I'm glad I chose a disciplined life, because I can't fucking just go into the mode that gets me satisfied like that. It's just like I'm too conflicted between my physical desires and like my desires for like a person that is a fucking intelligent person that I can fucking talk to back and forth in a relationship. And I can't just act like I want to have a one night stand, and thus it ruins a lot of things, because you end up thinking that's what you do. Right. Is this like I have my own damages, my own programmings from things I could not take from my parents, and things that were a bad influence in culture, whether it be certain people around me or certain television that I, as a pseudo latchkey kid, was watching. Right.
Right.
So a lot of us are fucked up, and I'm a testimony of how far you can get out of adjacent holes, if you will.
And we've got a whole population that doesn't have the context or wherewithal to put into this stuff, and so they kind of just go full into it, right? And so going back to, remember, we talked about at the very beginning with the Mannerbund and this idea of exploring the liminal spaces, or rather inhabiting a liminal space so you can explore these other taboo spaces. And so this psychologist here, I guess, I don't know who this is at all, didn't follow this through, but this person, I guess, argues that a furry's persona cannot be separated from their own sense of self, and many furries, in fact, see the performance of their persona as being their truest self. And I thought this line down here was really big. Dunn argues also that eventually these idealized traits are incorporated back into the self. While he notes that most common idealized traits given to personas are also considered ideal by society at large, S.C. Roberts et al. Hypothesized that to some, personas serve as a safe way to explore traits that are socially undesirable, right? And so that's totally on that same thing we talked about with the Mannerbund, right? That they got, you can kind of go blow off steam. You can kind of like figure out what's, act in this sort of way, but that's like, half socially acceptable, but half not. But
I'm all for somebody exploring like themselves and things like that, right? It's like, to do it in that fashion is something that they probably should have been doing, like maybe in their tweens, under appropriate parent or guardian guidance, if you will, and because we're talking about like people in their late teens, in their 20s, and this is something that's not just like a thing they do once a year, like it's a part of their personality.
Yeah.
Right. They're gonna, I'd imagine, I've never looked for it, I'd imagine there's probably a dozen YouTube channels or something, or Twitch streams or something of furries, doing whatever as a furry, doing politics as a granted, I'm doing politics as a fucking berserker, so fuck you. But but my point
that's
being,
the same thing, right? Of that it's like Sigmund and Svindiottier putting on the skins and being unable to take them off, though.
Right. Exactly. You can't. That's when you don't integrate, right? It's like not integrating the shadow, right?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about persona. Persona is ego, right? So this, especially because the way they're doing it has it has a collective relationship to it, right? There's a collective unconscious. But Jung doesn't talk about it as much as Freud, because he wrote a whole book on it and I read it. The collective ego, right? So this becomes one of those, right? So there's a whole egregore of this as like a cultural thing, and it stops being a kind of self-help therapy thing when it's not something that serves you in your shadow time, in your time alone, in your time where your ego doesn't fucking matter because you're alone. There's nothing and no one to perform for.
Yeah.
Right? You know, it's just your existence and the usual people that that are always around you anyway, and there's nothing to perform for them.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where the integration comes in, and you would say, let's mature, right? When does the guy dressing up like a Labrador fucking retriever fucking put that away and pick up the AK-47 of Amleth, right? You know, when does he start playing with real toys?
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. They kind of
did you take any footage? By the way, did you take any footage from the Rothschilds' ball for this?
Well, which ball? Oh no, I did not. Yeah, the one from the 70s or whatever.
Yeah, because The Shining was Eyes Wide Shut was based on those parties.
That's a good point. No, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, so they got a lot of rich people.
There wasn't as many animal masks, but there were some.
Yeah, there are some. And to bring it back to the Rothschilds, the Eyes Wide Shut and that scene is filmed at the Rothschild mansion, I believe, too, in Eyes Wide Shut.
Right. That's what I heard. Right. And the Devil's Advocate, the big orgy ritual that was in Trump's penthouse.
Oh, really?
Yes. Trump lent his penthouse out for the film because that's how he liked to live.
Interesting. And so just a quick tangent here, because we're talking about The Shining, we're talking about all this stuff. When I saw this too, and I was looking at this, also reminded me of something else. So this comes out in 1980. The Rothschild stuff was in 1978, I think is when it was. But I also reminded of the Beatle costumes from I Am the Walrus from the Magical Mystery Tour album. So they're wearing these costumes in the front of the album cover, and then they're wearing them for the music video that they do for the song, right? And I was like, yeah, these masks and these outfits look eerily a lot like the one that Stanley Kubrick used, just like, you know, just the way that they're molded and all that sort of stuff. And so this is actually from, so they got their costumes from this place in London called the Theatre Zoo, and it's like a specialty costume shop, and you can actually find this footage of them making their masks. Very, very short. Here's actually one of the Theatre Zoo ones, and I don't know if y'all if I'm stretching it too far with how it kind of looked, and I really tried to hunt it down, right? So here's the one from The Shining again, right? And then here are the ones from the Theatre Zoo. This is the place that they rented.
They're very lazy, like it's a pajama costume, which is what the furry costume is, right? It's
right.
It's just a onesie because you're just naked with fur, right?
Yeah,
you know, that's the thing. It's the ironic mirror of nudity. It's like you're completely not nude, but your costume is nude, but it's also covered in fur, so you can't see anything, just like with any furry animal. And
it's suggestive,
sexual, you know? Like I've never seen a scaly. I've never seen one of them as a lizard. or have I? I might be
lizard
lying.
People.
I might be lying about that, but they're rare because it's about fur, right? I you know, like, see, this is the other reason I don't do furry. Like, I got an iguana, right? It's just like, I love dogs, you know, I'm a canine guy or whatever. I love animals in general, but until my life can have a nice big wolfish dog, which it can't right now, I love my fucking exotic pet. I got my dragon player. That's good enough for me.
And here is the receipt that the Beatles actually have. So, you know, in the music video, one's wearing this bunny, one's wearing a lizard, I think, of some sort. One's wearing a walrus, obviously, and then the last one is oh my god, I'm totally blanking on what it is. But we have the receipt. I guess I can see it here. we have the receipt that they have, and so yeah, here's the gorilla. The Paul's wearing the gorilla, I think it is, and so. But if you notice what also they did rent a wolf too. I guess they just didn't use it, but they did rent it, and so I was really trying really hard. I was like emailing the Stanley Kubrick archives. I got a hold of someone and I found all the different boxes. And I was like, hey, check this box, check this box. Is there any?
Right.
Can we tell if the costume designer for this film maybe used one of the masks, or if they got someone from this place that made these masks, the ones that the Beatles used, to craft this one? And in some other YouTube video, I did find someone that did a test that. They're like, oh, there's a good chance that the Theater Zoo was a part of, making this one and all. So I was like, oh man, this is just a little close to home. It's pretty crazy. But there's obviously, if you look at this one, there's something very disturbing about, people thought this was a walrus maybe too, because these upturned tusks, the teeth right here are just very interestingly shaped here, right? So it's like, was it a dog? Is it a bear? Is it a walrus? Like, what is that thing? Especially since it's only like a split shot, and back in the day when you didn't have, at home VHS or whatever, and you'd only got to see it in the theater. So it's just like a quick shot. It's not a very long scene at all. I'm not trying to get too far into the
quick shot. It's in a moment of intensity anyway. I mean, like,
yeah,
Kubrick does one of his classic quick zooms for this shot. This is a wide shot that he goes vunk real fast like that, and then that's how they're staring at you when that happens, and then it cuts. Right, your brain has not enough time, which is the whole point in suspense horror, right? It's fucking he's a fucking master, right? Nobody can take that from
him. Great point. And so I don't want to get too much on the Beatles thing, but I can do a whole nother thing and just the I Am the Walrus thing and too. But I don't know. I was watching the beginning of the music video, and you got this guy at the beginning of the music video, and so they're all riding on this bus, the Magical Mystery Tour bus, and this guy's like, now, I'm kind of worried that y'all need to be, upstanding British class citizens, and y'all need to have fun within the bounds of proper British etiquette or something like that, is what he says. And then all of a sudden they zoom in on this little girl, is what they do in the very next shot. It's like it's on her, and then the camera pans out, and then everyone says, and you can see everybody on the bus, and here's Paul McCartney sitting right here. And so you see him too, and they're like, oh, yes, Mr. Blood Vessel, or whatever. But I just thought it was really creepy. Like, all right, I want you to have fun, but only within the bounds of proper British etiquette or something. And then it just zooms away from this child, and you get some quick shots of stuff like this in here, Magical Mystery Boy, and this kind of creepy thing. And this is only a split second in this music video, but it's like, what the hell is going on in this music video, man?
That's and I think that's George. I think
that's George,
right? Yep.
So I don't know. There's just some weird stuff going on in this music video, but I didn't want to tangent too much on this. But there's something bizarre about it.
Video in ages, so I can't give you any de-occultings on it right now.
Yeah, I don't want to go say too long on it, but I just wanted to kind of touch on it since I was thinking about their costumes. And man, if anyone can help me prove that the Theater Zoo or anybody of their designers was a part of the Kubrick film, that'd be really crazy. So now we're going to dive into some ancient Greek stuff, okay? So because we're talking about werewolves, and we're talking about, once again, this the beast taking over the man, or us not being able to properly integrated into the thing, right? So probably one of the more famous, where we even get our word lycanthrope from, is going to be from lycanthropos, literally wolf man, right? And so the most famous ancient Greek myth recounted by Plato is going to be King Lycaon, or Lycaon. And so literally from the Greek word lukos, which means wolf, and he was a king who was trying to feed the gods literally a person. He was trying to feed Zeus a person, and Zeus is like, screw you, and he killed like a bunch of his brothers and sons or whatever with lightning bolts, because Lycaon was trying to feed him a child, and that child actually is put back together by the gods, and I think it's Pelops, and he actually becomes he's the father of Atreus, which is going to be the father of Agamemnon and Menelaus, if you want to be a little topical. So he is cursed with being a wolf from then on. And some people, there's other traditions that even say that the Greek flood myth, the Deucalion flood, is actually another one of these punishments for these Lycaon people, right? The Lycaeidae, essentially, right? But to keep going down, once again, think about this vagabond sort of release of pent-up energy or whatever, right? We have the Lycaei, or Lycaei. Zoom in here real quick. In ancient Greece, the Lycaei, or Lycaei, was an archaic festival with a secret ritual on the slopes of Mount Lycaon, Wolf Mountain, in Arcadia. And Arcadia is just going to come up over and over and over again for me too, right? I already have so much stuff on Arcadia in this particular place that's, the home of the Greek mysteries almost. But I'll return back to this in a little bit. The ritual and myths of this primitive rite of passage centered upon the ancient threat of cannibalism and the possibility of a werewolf transformation for the Ephiboai, adolescent males who were the participants. The festival occurred yearly, probably at the beginning of May. Let me read this last part here. But the epithet Lukaios, wolf Zeus, is assumed by Zeus only in connection with Lachaei, which was the main Arcadian festival. Zeus had only a formal connection as the patron of the ritual, and the founding myth of Lycaon's banquet for the gods. It included the flesh of a human sacrifice, perhaps one of his sons, Nyctimus, or grandson Arcus, which is where the word Arcadia actually comes from. And if people don't know this, that's where the word Arctos comes from, which means bear in Greek, and where we get the word Arctic from, right? Zeus overturned the table and struck the house of Lycaon with a thunderbolt. His patronage at the Lycaea can have been a little more than a formula. Long afterward, in the 3rd century CE, the philosopher Porphyry reported that Theophrastus had compared the sacrifice at the Lycaea and Arcadia with Carthaginian sacrifices to Moloch. I've been to follow up on that. That's kind of interesting. And this is going to be also mirrored in another Roman tradition, the Lupercalia, right? So pretty much the very similar kind of deal here, right? Kind of people letting loose a little bit.
And remember, we've now learned that Moloch, who maybe today has egregored itself into a demon, was not a ancient Sumerian demon. It was a term for the kind of sacrifice offering that it was, and that he may mean that it was like a Moloch to Baal, effectively.
Yes. I think because Moloch, we think of it as the deity, but I think if you go to the Semitic, Moloch is actually the process. The literally means like, it's the burning or whatever, right? But it's actually like the process of it. Not that it was like Moloch was the being, but it was like the method of offering the being itself or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Which as a burnt offering, it qualifies for the term Holocaust. So, you are, your Moloch is a holocaust unto the god, whatever burnt offering that it is. Unfortunate that sometimes it was a small person.
So we have here the Lupercalia. Once again, Luper from lupus, I think is what it is. It's going to be the word in Latin for wolf, right? Here we've got Lupercalia. Lupercal was a pastoral festival of ancient Rome observed annually on February 15th to purify the city, promoting health and fertility. Originally known as Februa for purifications or purgings, after Februum, which was used on the day. Yada yada yada. So once again, this purging, or maybe they're saying purging, but maybe today we'd also like to say integrating, right? Or at least we're trying to either let off some steam, or we're trying to work out these sort of psychological pressures, right? Whether it be like in some cases we've been touching on, it's like a sexual kink or something like that, or a fetish that needs to sort of be psychologically unburdened. The name Lupercalia was believed in antiquity to evince some connection with the ancient Greek festival, Arcadian Lycaea, wolf festival, right? Latin for lupus, and the worship of Lycaean Pan, assumed to be a Greek equivalent to Faunus, as instituted by Evander, who is apparently an Arcadian, who is one of these. I just wanted to say the day. So Evander is Arcadian, who's maybe one of the people who started a colony in Rome. And if we're talking still about wolves here, the statue stood at Lupercal, the cave where tradition held that Romulus and Remus were suckled by the she-wolf, Lupa. The cave lay at the foot of the Palatine Hill, on which Romulus was thought to have founded Rome. The name of the festival most likely derives from lupus, wolf, though both the etymology and the significance are obscure. The wolf appellation may have to do with the fact that an animal predator plays a key role in the male rites of passage, just like we talked about the man of bone at the very beginning of the stream, right?
Yeah. And there's a cognate between Romulus and Remus and the mythology of Cain and Abel, which gets us into cannibalism, which is part and parcel for, I think back then, because of such primal times that it was, that if you were of Ophidnar kind and you let the wolf get out of control, you probably became a man-eater. And then you'd be riddled with Kuru, and you have feral shamanic superpowers, so you've got to be put down or exiled.
Yeah. And so yeah, here's just some motifs there. Right here's them where they're being suckled by the she-wolf. Lupercal was just the cave that they were talking about, or whatever, right? So here's another one from ancient Greek. We've got it actually becomes a goddess, but it's called Lusa or Lissa, literally meaning like mad rage or fury. Lissa was the goddess or personified spirit of mad rage, fury, craze, frenzy, and an animal's rabies. But if you've seen, whenever you see her, so in this scene, she appears as a woman dressed in a short skirt and crowned with a dog's head cap, representing the madness of rabies, right? So some people, when you're kind of foaming at the mouth and that sort of thing, that, you're possessed or, that's why it's associated with dogs and that kind of stuff too. But
right.
Her name, some people will attest. Let me open up this.
She might be cognate to one of Odin's Valkyries. I think one of the Valkyries is kind of is a god, is kind of like a goddess of frenzy, right?
And so here we've got Gregory Nagy here. He just did an interview actually with Jonathan B. He's like a YouTube philosopher. But anyway, he attests that the Greek word that I translate here as wolfish rage is lusa. And so in ancient Greek, the Y, oh no, it shot me out back to the beginning. The Y is how we would basically be a U, so lusa, which derives from lukos, which I said earlier, meaning wolf, and which refers to the martial fury experienced by two of the foremost heroes in the Homeric Iliad, Achilles and Hector. And the hero Achilles also experiences such fury in the drama Heracles of Euripides, but in this case, it is evidence that we cannot, strictly speaking, describe this rage as martial, since the fury of the hero is directed here not at his enemies. There is then a larger question: what is exactly wolfish about this rage experienced by these heroes? There's a comic about Pluto foaming at the mouth, and the mad dog and rabid dogs and rabies and all that sort of stuff. But let me just skip down here. The meaning of Greek word lusa as rabies has been fully explained in a dissertation by Roger C. Geragioli. As we see from his explanation, Greek lore about dogs becoming rabid and thus becoming mad dogs is connected with traditional ways of comparing the warriors of myth with two kinds of canines, dogs or wolves. The unifying structure I'm proposing is that dogs, wolves, and warriors form a triad in which the dog and warrior are opposed to the wolf on the principle of culture versus nature, or tame versus wild. But the dog and warrior may cross the divide from culture to nature, becoming like the wolf. What kinds of warriors then can do this? Let's see. The kinds of warriors who are comparable to mad dogs are modeled on the god Ares. He is the god of war, but he is also, more specifically, the god of martial fury in war, where Athena is obviously the more tactician battle god, right? In war, a warrior who is possessed by the god Ares experiences a kind of martial fury that is typically bestial. The Greek word for such martial fury, as I already noted, is lusa, meaning wolfish rage. Such is the working translation of Lincoln 1975. Here's that word you were talking about earlier, baby. Comparable is the Old Norse idea of berserker, an Old Irish idea of riostrad, warp spasm or distortion.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep. To experience such martial rage or warp spasm or distortion is to be beside oneself, and to be beside oneself is to be possessed. Possessed in the case of Greek traditions by the war god Ares. In the Homeric Iliad, such a state of possession is expressed by this word lusa, which I translate as wolfish rage. Blah, 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 blah. Let me get to the actual quotes here from the actual good stuff. In the drama Heracles by Euripides, starting at line 815, the female personification of madness, named Lusa, just think of the Y as the U, enters dramatic space. It happens after an evil hero named Lukos, wolf, is killed by Heracles. Now Lusa will possess Heracles and bring about his madness. At line 865, Lusa refers to her own wolfish rage. Tragically, the wolfish rage of Heracles is triggered not in the context of war, as he delusionally imagines, since the victims of the hero's fury will not be the enemy, but his own nearest and dearest, his wife and children. In Homeric poetry, a prime example of Lusa is the description of Hector, when he gets into a state of martial fury as a rabid dog, a lesetor kuon, kuna luce trepa, tera. Comparable is the wording that we read at line 934 is the Heracles, where Heracles is pictured as rabidly foaming at the mouth while he's possessed by the wolfish rage. When Hector experiences his own special moment of wolfish rage, it is said that Lusa literally enters his body and pervades it completely, as Iliad Book 9, 293. Not 239, my bad. After Hector kills Patroclus and puts on the armor of Achilles that Patroclus has been wearing, Zeus seals Hector into the armor, and then the war god Ares himself literally enters him. Do de min Ares, thus possessing him completely. So when Achilles finally kills Hector, he is in effect killing the embodiment of Ares, the god of war. Conversely, Achilles himself is possessed by Lusa in the most intense moments of his own martial rage. Right? In the dissertation of Roger Caragioli, he demonstrates that the generic Greek warrior in poetic moments of wolfish rage is conventionally comparable not only to a rabid dog in general, but also more specifically to the archetypal dog star or Sirius, that is Canis Major. During the dog days of summer, which we're actually apparently in right now, it's like from the end of July to like mid-August, the celestial, so very apt. The celestial canine can show his destructive side by transforming into a wolf that rapidly scorches the earth by belching forth the burning fire from his insides, bringing fever while destroying the vegetation cultivated by mankind. Achilles himself, in his own moments of wolfish rage, is compared to the dog stars we see in Iliad 290, book 22. I won't read the Greek from y'all, even though I'm taking a Greek class, but
there's Anubis also in ancient Kemet is associated with Sirius because is associated with the dog star, right?
Oh wow, okay.
And it's my personal testimony that nobody has to believe, but they say Anubis can come to you in your dreams is one of his favored ways of doing so, and I've had that experience. Like that I think all kind of lends credence to helping me out with what I am. Right. These are the aids towards my issues emerging. And I didn't know enough about Anubis when I had that dream. So I had to learn.
Shout out to The Mummy Returns, the best movie with Anubis in it. and all those mummy zombie things are the Anubis zombie things that he summons. Love that movie. So here's a quick thing about Achilles. We go back to the other thing real quick. This is actually quoting from the Iliad here. The first to catch sight of him, Achilles, with his eyes was old man Priam. There he was, radiant like that star, rushing over the fields, the one that comes at the time of harvesting, and his eyes are burning bright, shining forth among the other stars at night. They call him the dog of Orion as a side name. He is the brightest of them all, fashioned as a sign of bad things to come, and he brings fever to wretched humankind. That is how the bronze armor was shining as it covered the chest. Because they think the dog star around this time of year is like closest to it kind of rises and falls with the sun. So they're like, dude, yeah, this extra bright star is like extra cooking us, basically. Like it's like adding its fiery power to the sun, which is why they think it's associated with destroying crops and just being extra hot, and also just making you extra mad too, because you're just sweltering hot and just probably pissed off. And so we're like in the middle of the dog days of summer, like right now, actually, which is perfect timing maybe for this stream.
Yeah, I'm looking on my Stellarium app. I'm trying to find, because I never use it, so I'm just having trouble navigating. I'm trying to find Canis Major. Is it below the horizon? It might be below the horizon. Because Canis
here's
Major,
just a quick.
That's Sirius, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's just a quick pottery thing here. We've got Actaeon being devoured by his dogs, who have been driven mad by Lusa, a personification of madness. Once again, you can kind of see she's wearing that little dog helmet thing up there. And we've got Actaeon here, who is being portrayed as sort of being, the victim, because he's got these antler stags here. But once again, the dogs are out of control, right? Maybe it's like, like we said, the persona is sort of devouring the person. The madness is devouring the person. Maybe this is a more cool battle version thing and not your sort of sexual passions are overtaking yourself.
Oh, now it wants to freaking react to its own moves. All right. So anyway, Sirius is north on the opposite side, underneath, below the horizon. With Orion. So like Orion and Sirius are in the underworld right now.
Yeah, so there seems to be this, like constant thing of being torn apart by dogs and men, and if you're a werewolf, you're accused of being a man too. Very interesting. Yeah, so here's Actaeon being devoured by his own hounds, right? So it's like the wild side of the dogs he was or it was, he wasn't able to control it, or it got out of hand or something, right?
Right.
Like you said earlier with the Tyr and the Fenrir sort of thing, right? Maybe instead of just getting a hand bitten off and being like, okay, I can give my part of myself of this thing to wrangle this thing.
More Odinic though, because Fenrir never turns on Tyr.
Right.
Fenrir gets.
I'm just saying, like in the Tyr myth, at least he's got it under control. Where like in this one, I'm just contrasting like this is like out of control.
Yeah, definitely an out of control situation. But this would be more like Odin being consumed by Fenrir in that respect.
All right, let me zoom all the way back down in my slideshow. So back still in this ancient Greek stuff. So that was on the Wolfish Rage. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of these guys. These are going to be these kind of like proto-Dacians, I guess, is what it'd be. Because all this stuff that we're going to learn about here, these, obviously everyone knows about the Scythians, and these are basically these like neighbors to Scythians. And so it's all around this like Black Sea area anyway. So they're called the Neoroi. This is from Herodotus' Book 4. The Neoroi practiced the Scythian customs, and one generation before the expedition of Darius, it so befell them that they were forced to quit their land altogether by reason of serpents, for the land produced serpents in vast numbers. I don't know if there's a bunch of myths here going on. And they fell upon them in still larger numbers from the desert country above their borders. Oh, no. Until at last they were hard-pressed, left by their own land, and settled among the Bodoni. These men, it would seem, are wizards, for it is said by them, by the Scythians, and by the Hellenes, who are settled in the Scythian land, that once in every year, each of the Neoroi become a wolf for a few days and then returns again to his original form. And then Herodotus has to clarify, for my part, I do not believe them when they say this, but they say it nevertheless and swear it moreover. So yeah, he says that these people that are near the Scythians practice a lot of the same stuff in this Thracian area Thracian Dacian area that we're going to talk about, that they once every year become wolves for a few days. And so before I get to the Dacians, I wanted to touch on one more last, not to get too much into the furry stuff, but this idea of, the bestial relations, okay? Everyone knows about the Minotaur, right? Everyone knows about Theseus and the Minotaur, but do people remember that the Minotaur was birthed, he is half man, he's half the Cretan bull and half of this lady named Pasiphae. Pasiphae. She was a mortal god, daughter of the sun god Helios, practitioner of witchcraft, pharmakeia. Pasiphae married King Minos of Crete and bore him a number of sons and daughters. As punishment for some offense against the gods committed by either herself or her husband, she was cursed with lust for the king's finest bull. The queen enlisted the help of the artisan Daedalus, Diddy, I was making that joke earlier, who built her an animate wooden cow wrapped in bovine skin. Hidden inside the contraption, she coupled with the bull and conceived a hybrid child, the bull-headed Minotauros. So she literally got inside like a furry suit of a bull, and then the bull went to town on her, I guess. And so that's how the Minotaur was produced. So yeah, I don't know if there's some crazy Indo-European imagery going on there. That was Chance was sort of surmising.
Right. Yeah. There's a whole lot to be said about what that makes her as a human mortal woman, as far as that story goes. Wait, she is a human mortal woman, right? That's her backstory.
She was an immortal daughter, but she is a daughter directly of Helios.
Oh, but, okay. So she's a demigod.
Semi-divine.
She's a demigoddess. Okay, never mind. All right. So as so that makes. This is something where an ancient Greek conspiracy theorist who has met the Jews would say, "Oh my God, it's Nephilim! Oh, it's the Nephilim! It all makes sense now. Destroy Greece, right? This is what happens, right? So this is like the mythology of the Nephilim, right here.
Yeah, you're totally right. Very interesting. And so, then obviously he's killed by the Minotaur. And let me bring this back to The Shining, because in the very end of The Shining, Danny is in the maze. He is in a labyrinth, running away from Jack Torrance, running away from his dad.
Yes.
He was also a sort of like, maybe not literally, but sort of a child consuming entity in a sense, right? Very Cronus like, or very much like these wolves gone mad, or like Lycaon or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's running away from the Minotaur itself, right? And so, yeah, I like this whole motif. And how does Danny get away from the Minotaur? Me and Chance love talking about this. How does Danny successfully get away from the Minotaur?
He retraces his steps and hides, and then cuts off. And because he's not out of his mind, he remembers how to get out, because only he and his mom ever went in there.
Yep.
Jack's never been in the maze before. He got himself fucking lost.
And I love this idea, that he retraced his steps. Yes. It's almost like,
and remember, Jack's
learning about his past.
Jack's last name is Torrance.
Oh yeah, Torre, yeah, exactly, Tauros, literally,
yes.
Jack is also
right in there. Like, and the thing is, The Shining is a Loki story, right? Like, Danny is kind of like Loki, right? Like, before Loki does anything wrong, it's like an origin story, because Jack Torrance is Farbati, the cruel striker, right? It's outed before he goes nuts in the film that he beat Danny, that he beats Danny a little bit more often than just that one time. And what's her face was Lothy, very timid,
Windy,
woman, right? The timid one, but very fair, right? Someone of absolute sweetness and kindness, but you also see the dynamic where she's a little naive. She's not picking up on the cues of what's going on with her husband. Right. And in
the very beginning,
denialism of it, thus the counseling.
And on their way to the Overlook Hotel, and they're all driving there as a family. Danny asked about some lost expedition or some lost, wagon, people or whatever, and Jack's like, oh well, they all had to eat each other, right? And Danny's like, oh, I know about cannibal. Back to this sort of cannibal man eating motif again there anyway.
Right. Yes, exactly. So right. And just and the whole backdrop of the incepting of how to turn a man crazy and kill his own family, to turn on your family, to spill their blood. That's on the primal level. That's the cannibalism.
Yeah. Just like Lycaon, right? Lycaon, the first lycanthrope, right? Literally was trying to feed like one of his own kids or to the gods themselves, right? And the gods like don't do that.
Yeah.
It definitely seems to be a primal law that needs to will always be reinforced.
Jay Widener and what's his face from Raised by Giants. They were right about psychic driving, right? Their documentary on psychic driving from. What did he call it? He called it trying to remember the Amazon video by name. It was a Clockwork Shining. That's what it was, because it was explaining that there was an MK Ultra element to it, right? So there's an entire cool framework. And when I do my Shining breakdown on my channel here, which I think I also do with Slick Dissident, we get into all that stuff because I really love the work they did. I did a whole slideshow. I did so many fucking slides. It broke my brain how many slides, because I not only did The Shining, I did as suggested in Room 217. The shots were from The Shining forwards and backwards. So I gave you The Shining on the dual fucking level, because I'm that damn good and schizophrenic.
Keep up, folks. That's good. And so, like I said earlier, right, I was going to talk about the Dacians a little bit here, and the Dacians themselves literally might actually name in Thracian or Phrygian, I think, is literally wolf people, right? And I don't know, one of these essays here. I don't want to, this is really long, and so there's only one part I really wanted to touch off here, but it's just
And Dacia is where Count Orlok from Nosferatu is from.
Exactly. Maybe I won't go into all this, but it's a lot of just this Mannerbund motifs hitting all over again, and the imbibing the wolf and all that sort of stuff. But some people I think the Dacians related to the Gittae, and some people think the Gittae, as per Jordanes, who's one of these Gothic historians from this 600s, 700s period. He's writing on the history of the Goths. He also thinks the Gittae are actually the Gutans or the Goths, right? So, lots of warrior band stuff, lots of spear stuff kind of going on. They have the Gittae have a crazy ritual, a crazy martial divination thing where they like take a dude and they're like, all right, you're going to go talk to our god, right? And they throw him and he gets impaled on some spears. And then they're like, all right, now tell the god this, like when you get there, when you're done dying, because they're definitely going to kill him. They just throw dudes on spears. This crazy stuff. But the Dacians would be translated by a phrase, those who are like wolves. In some Latin sources, there occurs the term Dahe, Dacians, and the Greek term Dai, which the Old Persians had the equivalent Dahe, wolf. It's just another hypothesis of the Dacians' name from Mircea Eliade's perspective is of warlike ritual origin, a kind of initiating or warrior brotherhood. That's exactly that Mannerbund thing we were talking about at the very beginning here, right?
Yeah.
This intimated this behavior of wolves, military brotherhoods existing with important Indo-European peoples such as Persians, Aryans, Celts, Spartans, etc. What was essential in these brotherhoods was the transformation of the young man into a wolf, namely a skilled warrior, a beast, supernaturally assimilating the behavior of the wolf. And of course, they're also known for what does this say here? The Parthians, Persians as a nation, had flags with wolf symbols in some elite corps of their army. The wolf head with the body of a dragon, which sounds so freaking metal, like wolf dragons, and the Dacians' flag being the wolf head with the body of a snake.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw out a Javid Shah because I support the Lion and the Sun movement.
Dang it, I'm going to do this again. So I just have some of the Dacian flag standards here. And so, just like Zarelath is saying, is that this is the same area that, once again, we're still hanging around the Black Sea area, right? So remember, I was talking about this, earlier, remember Herodotus was telling us about the Neori. Oh, they have these dudes that are like wizards and they become like wolves for a few days. And this is the exact same region that we're talking about here, right? Just where the Gittae are as well. So here's here's Trajan's column, and you got these. They're also wearing Phrygian caps over here too, right? Here they've got one of these Dacian Draco standards here, and here you can kind of see it here. It must have been really freaky looking, I bet. But this standard is also eventually picked up even by like William the Conqueror. So like in this particular tapestry I've got here down below. This is from the Bayeux Tapestry. This is when William the Conqueror is invading England, and they're even using the Dacian Draco standard here too, right? And that's where people also think that the name Pendragon's may be relating to as well.
Yeah.
Here I got Nosferatu here with his obviously associated with two wolves here in the course of the movie. So
in the Box Saga, there's a relief. One of the videos I do covers it. The relief is a depiction of the original castle for the Hyperboreans, for the Pirouette family, right? And one of the spires of the castle had a standard, which was a flag that was a wolf's head that was called Fenris. So Fenris goes back to that spire had a purpose. The members of the family that lived under that spire would be the ones that have something to do with the Fenris mythos, and thus that kind of werewolf mythos, going all the way back. And I didn't hit the part of the Box Saga, I'm not sure of it yet, that explains why it's a wolf's head that has the name of that, like how that transfers from the Box Saga to Norse mythology, the interconnecting points of the story. So that's a mystery that I'm working on.
Yeah, definitely report back when you do. So I just got some more Thracian Dacian reliefs here. This is like from the 3rd century BC. Thracian horsemen. with his hound here. And if people will notice here, and I'm going to show it here in a minute too. So yeah, the Thracians are all about this like horse riding god, horse riding deity, right? And people might recognize this thing. This will eventually, let me combine it with this one first. This is a very common motif too. You get the Thracian horseman and a snake in a tree. People know about snakes and trees, don't they? Right. And this will eventually be turned into basically St. George slaying the dragon, right? Same motif of him like holding the spear and slaying like a giant serpent of some sort, right? Where this is more of a hunting motif from the BC. And eventually, and there's tons of these other ones where there's always talking to this. I don't think it's a palm tree. I'm kind of forgetting the name of the tree here, but there's always ones with this like snake in a tree here. Same thing here, right? It's always that same pose. Thracian horseman with his hounds and the snake entwined tree. Here we go. Yeah. So we get the whole thing here.
Are those wolves suckling off of the horse?
That's what it kind of looks like. Yeah, I didn't kind of notice that earlier, but that's definitely what that looks like.
Right.
Yeah, very Indo-European. Suckling a horse.
Yeah, very interesting.
So kind of bringing it here towards the end, maybe here. I've got a picture of Arctos, or I'm sorry, Arcus. And so his mother was turned into a bear, right? His and he's where the name supposedly Arcadia comes from, right? And supposedly, right before he didn't know his mom was a bear, he was about to hunt her, and Zeus like kind of snatched him up to kind of stop it, and maybe they did get killed, or then he saved him. I'm pretty sure he stops it, but then throws them up into the sky, and they become Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, right? And so his tail, the little bear's tail, the Little Dipper, we now call it today, right? So the Big Dipper and Little Dipper, screw those names. Let's go back to the big Ursa Major, Ursa Minor. People might know that, when it proceeds around so his tail is called the pole star, and it is what I don't really understand space and how this works, but the pole star, if you do your time lapse, the pole star doesn't move. Like, even though they said they were wobbling around all this stuff or whatever, everything seems to orient around the pole star. It is the one that does not move, and that's the very end of his tail. Hence, the symbol. No.
Now,
but
there would be a correlation with this story then, because if that's where that's coming from. Before Ragnarok, Alpha Draconis was the pole star. That was the star that was fixed and did not move. Right. That is when Finland was the North Pole.
Interesting.
Okay? So then we had our 23.4 degree axis tilt that gave us seasons, and then Ursa Minor's tail became the new pole star. Right. And this also represents Fenrir tied to Tyr, as the pole star is also Tyr's star. Right. And so that's kind of represents the binding of Fenrir in that respect. Right. And then the mother of Fenrir that turns Ursa Major in one context into Angrboda. In that context, right? Because Fenrir was Loki is the father, not the mother of Fenrir, right? I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because this is an Angrboda based situation, right? And Angrboda, the swamp hag, she's basically this. She's an anti-goddess of poisons and sorrows, right? That's kind of her bit. Poisons and sorrows. Bogs are places that you go for hostile territory, and they don't feel good, and everything is nasty. This is where he goes to copulate to make monsters in a poison soup.
There's something, even though it is poisonous, it's very miasmic, there's still something kind of like bubbling up. There's very primordial place too,
Loki gets slighted by the gods. He gets bitch hurt, and then he walks away from the castle like, you motherfucker, I got a plot for you. Like that's Loki, right? And he walks off and he screws this hoe and has some kids and and raises a generation against the gods. right? So that's the plight of our world under the conditions of the Ragnarok that we still live under.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. I didn't connect that stuff with the stars or whatever. And so, but thinking about the pole star, right? When I say pole, I'm literally even talking. I've even heard people talk about this Indo-European context, in that when you have a tent pole, right? You put your tent pole up, and it's like literally the center thing of your tent that upholds the canopy around it, right? So that's the star that doesn't move. If I were to draw a line down to Earth, it kind of creates this pole imagery, right? And so Julius Evola talks about this a lot too.
Yeah.
Hence why, the bear is always associated with the pole star, and obviously associated with this sort of primordial tradition too. But if you go back to The Shining real quick, what is the bear man doing? He's performing fellatio on a man, right? And so, man, pole, phallus sort of type imagery too. So I don't know if there's something going on there with that. This bear is like worshiping it, or is it reinforcing it? Because once again, it's like the mother and the child are the good guys in this story, right? The mom, if you watch The Shining, she's the one doing all the upkeep of the hotel. She's the one like doing all the boiler room checks, and she's the one like putting all the stuff up, and she's the one doing all the stuff while Jack's like kind of sitting around, going crazy.
If these guys are upholding what Odin after the Ragnarok, and I think even before the Ragnarok, said that we don't do anymore, right? Because the gene pool had gotten to such that we're not doing the incest thing anymore. You're biologically going to become unnatural to that, and humanity is going to go through some upgrades where it's emotionally not going to be healthy. And like, this is kind of a thing that happened over time where, like, God changed the plan of human behavior, believe it or not, right? This is the idea. And so the bear is in a suit. We don't know if it's a man or a woman, right? So the fellatio, if he's being served as such, like, this is part of the practice in the military system, right? This is the seed offerings, right? This is, this is bringing seed upline. So what if that's the mother taking from her son's seed because she is, because she's the mom, she's bringing that up, and because then she has to offer up something unto the next caste up, right? Because if the elites, the Rothschild types, are still practicing this system, which I guarantee you they are, which is why you keep getting all manner of social taboo coming out of them, right? There's a resentment. There's a resentment of Christianity and the Northern, because like it's obvious that the Northern pagans, we got the memo, right? Like that is, there's very little of that in our history until you go and you look at the Bach saga, except maybe among our elites, right? But the culture wasn't all like that, right? We got parts of the world where you don't want to know how freaking taboo they're actually acting.
Yeah.
Right? You just don't want to effing know, right? And this gives Christians and some Jews a lot of like clout because they don't do that, and they have stuff in the Bible that supports not doing that, right? And so more so than in Islam, which is why we're having these problems, you have to understand, right? And unfortunately Buddhism too, that was exposed when people looked into why the Dalai Lama acts like that. Right? So you're looking at this ancient tradition that effectively God said, okay, we're done with that project now. Right? That's what's supposed to happen. Odin does that. That goes down to Frey and Freyr, who are the facilitators of the seed offering as the earth gods and fertility gods. And then everybody in the Pirouette family is supposed to get the memo, tell the memo to the rabbis, and then the rabbis tell the 12 fucking kingdoms. But all of that got fucked up in the Ice Age.
Yeah, so people kind of want to hold on to the old ways and not let go, or they've got some just feeling all
exactly.
butthurt about it, no pun
Especially
intended.
because the old ways of the old money is connected to like cheating the system because you want to keep the titles in the family and stuff, right?
Right.
And like in the Islamic world, that's why there's so much inbreeding, right? You know, there's the huge land. I was watching a video that was explaining those are their practices that they're not telling you about.
Yeah,
got the most of that fucking world is a small gene pool. They're not right in the cabeza.
They got that Muhammad gene.
Unfortunately, actually need stewardship.
Yep. Totally. Yep. Man, really interesting. So yeah, you're saying that kind of scene is like depicting like it's almost it's like the inversion. You know, it's almost that it's because if it is a man in the suit, then it's obviously not life creating too. That it's a sort of not just it's what's the word not to be not quite a circle jerk, but it's like self I'm totally blanking on the word right now, but but suggest there, but if it's a woman, it could be, if things are properly aligned, then it would be okay. See, the whole point of The Shining is that things are not right. The man is obviously the pole, the tradition is obviously gone off haywire, and that's why it's consuming its children and sort of being destructive, right?
And the Bach saga does say father and son too. This is just the way it was then in the beginning.
And so last little points here. There's these are some of the quote unquote chthonic or indigenous people of Japan, the Ainu, and they have a thing about like sending off a bear. Like if they kill a bear, you kind of got to like apologize for it, or they do this whole thing where I guess they kind of they scapegoated, and this may be tradition too or something.
There's one rare piece of footage that somebody had shared on the internet. It might have been Survive the Jive. Where somebody filmed the tribe doing their bear sacrifice ritual. Mm-hmm. So you get to watch the whole thing, everything that they do, because they do the whole thing to put the spirit of the bear or the god in the bear through like the treating it really well and all this stuff, and then they do a whole thing where they select a guy to be the one who kills it with bow and arrow, right? And so then they put they put him out in like in an open courtyard or whatever. I think everybody's kind of surrounding him or whatever, and then he's there with the arrow, and then there's this kind of like this little dance about them, and then he lets a few arrows fly until it kills the bear. Then they go through the whole thing, and then the whole tribe eats the bear at a dinner.
Yeah. And so, just with this idea of, this ideas of bears and the pole and the tradition and all that sort of stuff too. And I also I haven't actually seen this movie, but apparently this is the end of Midsommar, where they sew a dude into a bear costume and then they like burn him alive, but they, sacrifice him, for lack of a better word.
Right.
But once again, it's just like with these sort of movies, like, I don't know what they're trying to get across, right? With these people at the Mar-a-Lago thing or these other, we don't know if all these occultists are on the same team. And so whoever's doing this, like, are they telling us like to burn this tradition down, right? That's what I was kind of wondering, because it ends with the female kind of alive.
I would recommend there was a decent found footage movie that I caught when those were all the rage called The Conspiracy. I would recommend The Conspiracy. It's an interesting film because it's relevant because they're big on the, I think it's like the elk mask. I think it's on the cover of the poster for the film. And it's about some ordinary dudes who stumble on the elites that do the whole, Bohemian Grove thing, basically, right? And so it's a very interesting thing, and even if it doesn't teach you too much, it's a good movie as far as running you, like, how do you end up in this situation, right?
Interesting. But with something like this, it's with the Shining, right? It's sort of like a bear performing fellatio on the pole, and then this one they're like burning the bear down, like they and how the women end up being most of the survivors, right? Like Wendy is the survivor, even the good one, and the chick in this one, I know she kind of survives, or Florence Pugh, she survives at the very end.
Right.
I just can't tell, like, what's the conveying of this sort of thing, other than just being creepy. But yeah, with the symbolism of the bear being related to stuff like this, and obviously famous sign, and all these other sorts of ancient myths.
Because the way movies are, you can also, if you re-examine it, like pay closer attention to him and his relationship with everybody that's part of this cult in this film, right? See, what is it about him that looks like the quality in which they selected him, right? Perhaps because a lot of horror films are like this, perhaps he, like in The Wicker Man, like if you pay closer attention to The Wicker Man, there was a point where he's meddling way outside of bounds. And there becomes a turning point of trust because, this outsider wants to get in on this whole thing that we effing do, right? And so he got himself in trouble by prying and not just accepting who they were.
Yeah.
Right. Which the idea in the horror film is that, like, the reason why pagans don't want to talk to you is because they're doing evil in the dark, right? It's not because we believe in things you don't understand, because we're seeing past black and white morality and understanding where we fucking came from and the rights and the wrongs that we did to get there.
I think in the context of this movie, I think this is the boyfriend of the main chick, and I think he's just like a giant douchebag the whole movie. I think he cheats on her. He doesn't care that he's kind of like absent. Their families died or whatever too. Right. So yeah, I don't think he's portrayed as a good guy. So
right, and so yeah, like, and there you go, right? Like, name a pagan society that would think that he has honorable characteristics. Right? Like, to be that dishonorable, like, it's maybe he didn't do anything that they would have sacrificed him to the gods for as a death penalty, right? Because at the end of the day, you're being ritually sacrificed because they've decided to kill you for a legitimate reason, and thus they don't want to kill you without honoring your soul regardless.
Yeah.
Right. So you become part of ritual sacrifice in that way. It's the same thing when we execute somebody in today, and there's a priest that'll read you your last rites, rituals.
And last little bits here. This is at the end of the slideshow, but this is more of maybe about this lack of integration. Maybe the Proteus effect describes a phenomenon in which the behavior of an individual within virtual worlds is changed by the characteristics of their avatar. This change is due to the individual's knowledge about the behaviors that other users who are part of that virtual environment typically associate with those characteristics. And so, yeah, just this embodying the avatar and letting it become part of you, right? Proteus, or yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that if you got a good avatar.
Yeah, right. A stable one, and just a couple other, a couple of these like psychological terms here, right? This one was talking about the carnival, which he describes as a social institution here. For my Shakespeare people out there, Gargantua and Petrarch, Thomas Nash kind of came up with this. He was someone who talked to him, likened him to a character from this. But if you go to the carnival, because you talked about the collectivity. For Bakhtin, carnival, which also means like meat party or something, right? Carne, is associated with collectivity. Those attending a carnival do not merely constitute a crowd. Rather, the people are seen as a whole, organized in a way that defies socioeconomic and political organization. According to Bakhtin, all who are considered equal during carnival. Here in the town square, a special form of free and familiar contact reigned among people who are usually divided by barriers of caste, property, profession, and age. Kind of like that Lupercalia thing or something too, or some of the what's the old Christmas one? I'm kind of forgetting that they kind of liken it to.
Saturnalia.
Saturnalia, thank you.
Yeah. Because Saturn's a son of a bitch, but if you follow him, he gives you the best rewards. That's the whole bit.
At carnival time, the unique sense of time and space causes individuals to feel they're part of the collectivity, at which point they can cease to be themselves. It is at this point, through costume and mask, an individual exchanges bodies and is renewed. At the same time, there arises a heightened awareness of one's sensual, material, bodily unity, and community. And man, isn't that just like, we don't have carnivals today, but we got movies still. I don't even go to the movies anymore, but I feel like the movie is definitely a part of this sort of phenomenon too, in a sense,
Yeah, I can't remember the exact etymology breakdown, but carnival in the Box Saga has to do with an event that is for the car class, right? And so and I think it had something to do with selection. I don't want to be confusing it with the mate selection process. I don't know if it was that where the maidens come out and they pick the best dude. That might be what it was. But the car class participated in the carnival. And then it's just remembering what the ne and the vol in root language means to freaking remember that. So there's your homework assignment.
Last little 2 articles, and I pretty much got all my sources today. I thought this one was really interesting about this guy. I'm not gonna, but he had this concept of like why we look at animals, and like because this concept of like modern man especially is so removed from our natural habitat or a more natural habitat, and so that's why we have zoos, right? Because the animal is just a now a foreign thing, right? I could go look at the bear in the zoo, right? I don't have to be a grizzly man and go get eaten by it or whatever. But this idea of that we are still enamored with the animal world, that it still takes up so much of our imaginative space, and that there's still something therapeutic about it. And so just going back to the old Hedeby mask and this participation with the animal natural world, and I also just kind of question, like what are we losing, and to kind of go full inversion with the Mar-a-Lago thing, right? They're not like wolf warrior dudes kind of like roaming around there and kind of being debaucherous or kind of being crazy. No, like we saw people in dog masks and they're dressed in like Victorian, the most like restrictive clothing sense we probably ever come across, right? Like that's what Eggers and Nosferatu, right? It, like literally her little corset thing is like choking her, and that how much that is sort of a conversation about doing that to females at that sort of time period too.
And it's interesting to think about how that works. And like the thing is, this is like I'm not seeing wild animals at this party, or at least not wild animals of a predatory nature, right? Like because you might see like the deer or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're talking about all manner of animals that man can trust or domesticate is how they're acting about it, right? And this is that whole it's that whole dynamic of just having like you've got like either a version of your beast which is completely under control, or you've taken your beast and you've subjugated it, right? It could be one or two ways to look at it, depending on how and who you are, I suppose. And those parties, they probably want you to be groomed to be one of those particular things.
Yeah.
Probably the more emasculated one.
Yes.
Considering its likeness to the furry situation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they can kind of channel it and kind of control where that primal energy is going or how it's being harnessed, right? Like, we don't want you becoming a wolf. We don't want you going out there. We want you to become a nice little, twink online or something like that,
Exactly. Just men need to like bring back like Civil War reenactments or something. Like we gotta have a manly, justifiable playtime to make it all fucking come together, right?
Yep. Without it being accused of being some sort of right wing, blah 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 blah. But I thought maybe this is the good way to end this sort of thing, and we'll give Christians a bone here, no pun intended. Saint Francis and the Taming of the Wolf. The story of Saint Francis of Assisi. don't know what that's from. I don't know, just the word os in there related to the even.
Just remember, the last pope named himself after this guy, if not the Black Pope.
Interesting, but I just want even the word os, ass, is like the Norse, the singular version of Ossia, right?
Sure.
The story of how Saint Francis Assisi tamed the wolf of Gubbio is one of great legends linked with the life of the saint. Blah 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 blah. In this well-known legend, Saint Francis goes to the Italian town of Gubbio, where a fierce wolf has been terrorizing the village and even killing some people, including children. During his visit, Francis goes to meet the wolf. You can find the event. Blah 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 blah. The Little Flowers of St. Francis, a 14th century collection of stories about Francis and his companions. According to the story, when the wolf sees St. Francis, he comes charging at the saint with his mouth open, ready to attack. St. Francis immediately makes the sign of the cross over him and says, "Come here, brother wolf. I command you on behalf of Christ to do me no harm and to anyone." As soon as St. Francis did this, notes Little Flowers, the fearsome wolf closed his mouth and stopped running. At once the command was given, it came meekly as a lamb and threw itself at the feet of St. Francis, and he cuts a deal with it. Then St. Francis scolds Brother Wolf for destroying and killing the creatures of God. "The whole town is complaining about you," Francis tells the wolf gently, "but I want to make peace between you and the people, and so I promise that I will have food given to you regularly. Brother Wolf, by the people of this town, so that you will no longer suffer hunger. And I want you, Brother Wolf, to promise that you will never harm any person or animal." The wolf showed agreement by simply bowing his head. And so St. Francis asked the people of the town if they will promise to provide food for the wolf regularly. They all say they will. Finally, St. Francis asked the wolf to give a guarantee in front of all the people he would no longer inflict harm upon the people of Gubbio or its animals. Then the wolf, lifting his right paw, placed it in the hand of St. Francis. Because of this action, there was such rejoicing and wonder among the people that they all began to cry to heaven, praising and blessing God who sent Francis to them, who through his merits had freed them from the jaws of the cruel beast. Afterwards, the same wolf lived in Gubbio for 2 years, and he tamely entered the house, going from door to door without harming anyone, without any being done to him, and he was kindly fed by the people. Finally, after 2 years, Brother Wolf died of old age, of which the citizens grieved very much. But this idea of that, trying to not just like kill the beast and not just putting in a cage, but trying to come to some sort of common ground, because if we are at some point, we have hair, we have blood, we have thirst, we have all that stuff. We are like animals in so many senses. And so ignoring it or not properly integrating it, as we've sort of been discussing over and over, and not recognizing where it goes wrong is going to be ultimately bad for us. And so, how do we deal with the wolf? It
seems so strange to me that nobody just tried to kill it before he showed up. Right. I mean, because how fast could he have shown up, and how hard is it to kill this was a lone wolf, no pack?
Well, there's no fun in that story there, lad.
This might have been an allegory for a feral man. This may have been an exiled Ulfhenar, right?
Yeah. Or just, because Rome is founded by a bunch of, not only founded by suckling wolf men, but it is specifically home into, like, apparently it said, like, we'll accept outlaws, we'll accept vagabonds, we'll accept brigands and all that sort of stuff too, right? So maybe it's just like we have all these outcasts in society. We've got people with sexual kinks, we've got people with anger issues, we've got people with, take your pick of like what all these natural things mean. But like, hey, like, you stop hurting us, and we'll try to figure out how to help you, right? Like that's how it's supposed to go.
What I know for sure is that a lot of these kinds of figures like St. Francis, whether it had something to do with something the church gave them, or whether it was really just within them, which is the idea where the church will deem someone a saint, right? It's, he had a gift because he was a patron saint of animals, right? This is why they wanted because they wanted an environmentalist. They wanted a Green Party Pope, right?
That's why St. Francis,
and that's why we had Pope Francis, right? And you saw the world's environmental leanings during his time. So, he probably was an animal whisperer. Right. He may have been the kind that had an inclination to animism. He's talking to the wolf, right? It's just like, where was the debate about wolves having souls or spirits, right? In the time, what was the theological understanding, right? Because there's some Christians, they don't think that way, and they'll just kill an animal and not think about it because it's got nothing to do with the 10 Commandments because it's an animal. Right?
Yep. Well, yeah, I think that is pretty much everything I had lined up. And so, yeah, thank you so much for riding shotgun and providing all that excellent commentary and sort of background information. I thought that was a perfect little footnotes and addendums throughout that whole thing too. Because great experience being able to kind of like pair up your personal experience with all that sort of stuff, and also just dropping some of them deep esoteric lore stuff as well.
Yeah, I'll need an upload. The early half of the show my side of the audio wasn't registering for a while. I found out I had to add myself to the show, and then I didn't want to screw with anything. So anyway, send me an upload because I want to upload the whole show because people couldn't hear me, but they heard you early on.
Yeah, we'll do. I'll definitely do that.
Right.
As we close this out, everyone go check him out. I've done a stream about Hecate and my Macbeth stuff with him some time ago. Of course, Stein is our mutual friend as well, so go check out his channel. Shout out to Stein Fox of Greyhorn Pagans. He's always doing tons of interviews all the time.
I do tarot and rune readings every Sunday afternoon that Stein and I are available, and that's an hour-long show in the afternoon. And so you can either contact Stein on or you can check in on Stein's comments he usually puts up a poll now of do you want a reading on Sunday, and then that'll be there live or notify the Greyhorn Pagans podcast that you want a reading, and then I will do the reading blind, and you better show up for it.
Yep, exactly. He does good work, folks. So I definitely recommend going to check out one of the readings, rune or tarot readings too. So if there's nothing else for us to add tonight, I think we'll be ending off there. So yeah, thank you so much everybody for stopping by tonight. I had a blast going through once again. Yeah, I told him I was like, I need a schizo master for here, and he definitely answered the call. So super appreciate that someone was able to actually keep up and not be like, the whole time through, and provide actually real commentary throughout this before. So had a great time. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime soon about some other weirdo topic on another Wednesday. But otherwise, everyone, go and read all the sources for yourself. Nullius in Verba, everyone. Take care.
Later.
All right.